Tom fixes a flat tire. Tom is a young man who lives in a small town. He is 25 years old and works as a teacher at the local school. Tom loves his job because he enjoys helping children learn new things. He drives a blue car, which he uses to go to work every day. One sunny morning, Tom wakes up early. The sun is shining, and the birds are singing outside his window. He stretches his arms and gets out of bed. Today is a special day because he plans to visit his friend Mike, who lives in the next town. Tom goes to the bathroom to brush his teeth and wash his face. The cool water feels refreshing. He looks in the mirror and smiles. Today is going to be a great day, he says to himself. He puts on his favorite blue shirt and a pair of jeans. He combs his short brown hair and puts on his watch. Tom goes to the kitchen to make breakfast. He makes a bowl of cereal with milk and slices a banana on top. He also pours himself a glass of orange juice. As he eats, he thinks about the fun he will have with Mike. After breakfast, Tom washes the dishes and cleans the table. He grabs his keys, wallet, and phone. Before leaving, he checks that all the windows are closed and the lights are off. He steps outside and locks the door. The weather is warm and pleasant. He walks to his car, which is parked in front of his house. He unlocks the car and gets in. Tom starts the engine and turns on the radio. His favorite song is playing. He smiles and begins to drive down the quiet street. As he drives, he enjoys the scenery. The trees are green, and the flowers are blooming. He passes by the park where children are playing. This is such a beautiful day, Tom thinks. After driving for about 15 minutes, Tom notices that his car is not moving smoothly. The steering wheel feels heavy, and the car is pulling to one side. That's strange, he says aloud. He decides to pull over to the side of the road. He parks the car and turns off the engine. He gets out of the car to check what is wrong. Walking around the car, he sees that the front right tire is flat. Oh no, Tom says with a sigh. I have a flat tire. He feels a little worried but reminds himself to stay calm. I can fix this, he thinks. Tom opens the trunk of his car. Inside, he finds a spare tire, a jack, and a lug wrench. Good thing I have all the tools I need, he says. He takes out the spare tire and places it on the ground near the flat tire. He also takes out the jack and the lug wrench. Tom remembers that safety is important. He looks for something to place behind the other tires to prevent the car from rolling. He finds a couple of large stones nearby and places them behind the rear tires. Better to be safe, he thinks. He takes the lug wrench and begins to loosen the lug nuts on the flat tire. He turns each nut a little but does not remove them yet. It's easier to loosen them while the car is still on the ground, he says to himself. Next, Tom positions the jack under the car, near the flat tire. He checks the owner's manual to find the correct spot to place the jack. Here it is, he says, finding the spot. He carefully raises the car with the jack. He turns the jack handle slowly, and the car lifts off the ground. Once the tire is off the ground, Tom removes the lug nuts completely. He places them in a safe spot so they won't roll away. He pulls the flat tire off the car and sets it aside. This tire is really flat, he observes. He lifts the spare tire and aligns it with the wheel bolts. He pushes the spare tire onto the car. Almost there, he says. Tom picks up the lug nuts and screws them onto the bolts by hand. He tightens them just a little to hold the tire in place. Now, he lowers the car slowly by turning the jack handle in the opposite direction. The car returns to the ground. With the car on the ground, Tom uses the lug wrench to tighten the lug nuts fully. He tightens them in a star pattern to make sure the tire is secure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He counts as he tightens each nut. He checks each lug nut again to make sure they are tight. "That should do it," he says with satisfaction. Tom collects his tools and puts the flat tire into the trunk. He also puts the jack and lug wrench back in their places. He removes the stones from behind the rear tires and places them back where he found them. Tom wipes his hands with a cloth. They are a little dirty from the work. "Not bad," he says proudly. "I fixed the tire all by myself." He gets back into the car and starts the engine. He checks the mirrors and signals before pulling back onto the road. As he continues driving, he thinks about what happened. "I'm glad I knew how to change a tire," he reflects. "It's a useful skill." Tom decides to stop at a gas station to check the air pressure in the spare tire. A few miles down the road, he sees a gas station and pulls in. He parks near the air pump and gets out of the car. Better to make sure the spare tire has enough air, he thinks. He checks the air pressure using the gauge on the air pump. It needs a little more air," he says. He adds air to the tire until it reaches the correct pressure. "That's better," he says. While at the gas station, Tom decides to grab a snack and a bottle of water. He goes inside the convenience store and picks up a granola bar and a bottle of water. At the counter, he pays the cashier. "Having a good day?" the cashier asks. "Yes, thank you," Tom replies. "I had a flat tire earlier, but I fixed it." "That's good. It's important to be able to do that," the cashier says. Tom smiles and thanks the cashier. He returns to his car and continues on his way to Mike's house. As he drives, he feels happy and confident. "I can't wait to tell Mike about my adventure," he thinks. After about 20 more minutes of driving, Tom arrives at Mike's house. Mike is waiting outside, sitting on the porch. "Hey, Tom," Mike calls out as Tom parks the car. "Hi, Mike," Tom replies. Tom gets out of the car and walks up to the porch. "How was your drive?" Mike asks. "It was interesting," Tom says with a grin. "What happened?" Mike inquires. "I had a flat tire on the way here," Tom explains. "But I changed it myself." "Really? That's impressive," Mike says. "Not everyone knows how to do that." "Yeah, I'm glad I learned how," Tom says. "Come inside, and you can tell me all about it," Mike says. They go into the house and sit in the living room. Tom tells Mike the whole story. "I was driving along, enjoying the day, when I felt the car pulling to one side," Tom says. "I pulled over and saw that the tire was flat." "Did you have all the tools you needed?" Mike asks. "Yes, I had a spare tire, a jack, and a lug wrench," Tom replies. "I loosened the lug nuts, lifted the car, changed the tire, and tightened everything back up." "That's great," Mike says. "Good job." "Thanks," Tom says. "I even stopped at a gas station to check the air pressure." "Smart thinking," Mike says. They spend the rest of the afternoon hanging out. They play some video games and watch a movie. Later, they decide to go out for dinner. "Let's take my car," Mike suggests. "Sounds good," Tom agrees. They drive to their favorite restaurant, a place that serves delicious burgers and fries. At the restaurant, they order their food and talk about various things. "So, are you going to get your flat tire fixed?" Mike asks. "Yes, I need to take it to a tire shop," Tom says. "I'll do that tomorrow." "It's important to have a good spare tire," Mike says. "Definitely," Tom agrees. After dinner, they return to Mike's house. "It's getting late," Tom says. "I should head home." "Thanks for coming over," Mike says. It was fun. Yeah, I had a great time, Tom says. Drive safely, Mike says. I will, Tom replies. Tom gets into his car and begins the drive home. The night is cool, and the stars are shining. As he drives, he feels grateful for the day. Even though I had a flat tire, it turned out to be a good experience, he thinks. When he arrives home, he parks the car and goes inside. He takes a shower to clean up after the day's activities. Afterward, he sits down and writes a list of things he needs to do. Tomorrow, take the flat tire to the tire shop, he writes. He also decides to check the other tires to make sure they are in good condition. Better to be safe, he thinks. Tom prepares for bed. He brushes his teeth and puts on his pajamas. As he lies in bed, he reflects on the day. I'm glad I knew how to fix the tire, he thinks. It's important to be prepared. He sets his alarm for the next morning and turns off the light. Good night, he says softly. The next day, Tom wakes up early. He feels rested and ready to take care of the tire. He gets dressed and has a quick breakfast of toast and coffee. He takes the flat tire out of his trunk and loads it into his car. He drives to the local tire shop. At the tire shop, a mechanic named Steve greets him. Good morning, Steve says. How can I help you? Hi, I have a flat tire that needs to be repaired or replaced, Tom says. Let's take a look, Steve says. They examine the tire together. There's a nail in the tire, Steve says, pointing to the small metal piece stuck in the rubber. Can it be repaired? Tom asks. Yes, I can fix it, Steve says. It will take about 30 minutes. Great, Tom says. Tom waits in the customer area. He reads a magazine and sips a cup of coffee. After some time, Steve returns. Your tire is fixed, Steve says. I also checked the other tires, and they are in good shape. Thank you, Tom says. They settle the bill, and Tom thanks Steve again. Have a good day, Steve says. You too, Tom replies. Tom returns home and puts the repaired tire back into his trunk as a spare. He feels satisfied that everything is in order. Later, he decides to share his experience with his students. At school on Monday, Tom stands in front of his class. Good morning, everyone, he says. Good morning, Mr. Tom. The students reply, I want to tell you a story about something that happened to me this weekend, he says. The students listen attentively. I was driving to visit a friend when I got a flat tire, he begins. But I was able to fix it myself. He explains how he changed the tire and why it's important to know how to do such things. Being prepared and knowing basic skills can help you in unexpected situations, he says. One of the students raises her hand. Yes, Lisa, Tom says. Did you learn how to change a tire from someone? She asks. Yes, my father taught me when I was younger, Tom replies. Another student, Alex, raises his hand. Do you think we could learn how to do that? Alex asks. That's a great idea, Tom says. Maybe we can have a lesson on basic car maintenance. The students seem excited about the idea. Learning practical skills is important, Tom says. It helps us become more independent. The class continues with their regular lessons, but Tom feels happy that he could share his experience. A few days later, Tom organizes a workshop at the school for students to learn basic car maintenance. He invites Steve, the mechanic from the tire shop, to help teach the students. On the day of the workshop, the students gather outside near a car. Welcome, everyone, Tom says. Today, we're going to learn some important skills. Steve shows the students how to check the oil, change a tire, and check the air pressure. The students take turns practicing under supervision. This is fun, Lisa says. I'm learning a lot, Alex adds. At the end of the workshop, the students thank Tom and Steve. Thank you for teaching us, they say. You're welcome, Tom replies. Remember, knowledge is power. Steve smiles and adds, always be prepared, and don't be afraid to learn new things. Conclusion. Tom's experience with the flat tire turned into an opportunity to teach others. He feels proud that he could help his students learn valuable skills. As he reflects on everything, Tom thinks, sometimes unexpected problems can lead to positive outcomes. He continues to encourage his students to be curious and to learn both in and out of the classroom.